Hello?
I
Chris?
yeah.
Christopher? What's up, man?
How are you?
I don't know why I can't, every single time that I talk to somebody named Chris, I always think of Adriana from The Sopranos. She's always like, Christopher!
Yeah.
Christopher! Dude, look at your hair. You should do like a Pantene Pro V commercial. That's glorious.
Thank you.
Just grow it really long and sell it. That's gorgeous head of hair, dude. Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. I'm good. Saw Top Gun this morning.
Okay.
Solid flick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for willing to do this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah. So I could
Yeah.
just jump around then in terms of roles in your career and everything.
Yeah, let's jump.
Okay.
Yeah, let's jump.
Well, I know. In terms of anime, it started with Saiyuki.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that is the very first voiceover job that I had, paid voiceover job. That's crazy. Yeah, it was at ADV Films in Houston.
Yeah.
Stephen Foster was the director, and I was doing a theater audition. It was called a co-op theater audition in Houston, where you audition for several different theaters in the Houston area. And I did two monologues that had like really charactery voices. I think one guy was like, it was like a Nikki Silver play or something like that, and I did sort of this like New Jersey accent or something. And then I did another one. I think it was like a very sort of proper British thing or something. I can't remember what it was exactly, but one of the directors saw me in the audition and said, "Hey, you should do some voiceover stuff over with my buddy Stephen Foster at ADV Films." I was like, voiceover, which is crazy because I actually got most likely to do voiceovers at my 8th grade graduation ceremony.
Hmm.
They had like they had these like individual awards or whatever, which is pretty fun. And I got most likely to do voiceovers. My parents still have the like certificate or whatever on their fridge, which is funny. It's all come full circle, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I met Stephen Foster and auditioned for him, and it was my first time like doing anything. So it was a terrible audition, awful,
Hmm.
but he was so kind, and he's just an incredible director, wonderful writer, and worked with him over at ADV Films and several other directors over the next few years there before the move out to sunny Los Angeles.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I actually watched. I know it was around the same time he got started in anime. I watched part of the Stairwell.
Oh no. Oh my gosh, that's a deep cut, dude. Wow. Wow. Yeah, that was my very first on camera thing that I ever did coming out of college. Actually, it may have been while I was still in college. But yeah, that was early on. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. Obviously a multi-million dollar budget on that one. So,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah, it's high rolling from the very beginning. So, yeah.
And then you were in some TV movie with Dee Snider about the parental stuff back in the 80s about like the records and
Man, you've done your homework. Wow. Yeah. It was a VH1 movie when they were still doing their thing back in the day, and it was Jason Priestley, Dee Snider. I can't remember who played Tipper Gore.
Mariel Hemingway.
Mariel Hemingway. Yeah, yeah. And it was about the hearings that happened in, I think it was the 80s, about
Right.
censorship and all that kind of stuff. And I played like a senator's aide or something like that. I think I had one line and it ended up getting cut. So yeah, it's crazy, man. You never know what is going to happen with anything. And so at that time, it was just saying yes to everything. Just to, sort of get an idea of how the industry worked and where my place was in it, and just trying to collaborate with other people. So yeah,
Mhm.
man, that was early on, dude. I can't believe that's over 20 years ago now. That's almost 30 years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, these old bones still have a little bit of memory left in them.
With your first character part in anime, do you think it would have been a cat girl Nuku Nuku?
um, well, Saiyuki was the first one that I had like a character uh, that I played. Is that what you mean? Is that what you
Like
asked?
a named character.
Yes, instead of like
Yeah.
Demon Slayer number three, I think it may have been Nuku Nuku. I'm not sure. Yeah, man, that was a long time ago now. And then, um, yeah, and Super Milk Chan was
Yeah.
another really early one, and that one I got to play Hanage, which was a really fun little like slug booger character in Super Milk Chan, and that ended up going. I think that was on not
Oh,
Cartoon Network or like Adult Swim or something like that. They picked it up. But we did two versions of that show. There was one that was just the straight anime, and then we also shot live action sequences
yeah.
that Stephen Foster actually wrote into the show that would intercut in between the show and the live action stuff of the cast actually do like just being themselves or like these accentuated versions of ourselves, and that was so fun. That was a great time. It was like just an incredible cast too. So but Super Milk Chan was great because that was like sort of my first sort of bigger character in the world of anime. And yeah, I say anime is such a different skill set. It's incredible to me. And people who are really good at dubbing, you can see it, you hear it, you feel it, because they understand that arena. It's a very different kind of voiceover than, and it's technical too. Like you have to honor what you see on the screen, but then you also have the technical component of matching the flaps. So it's definitely a challenging medium for sure. So
Mhm.
yeah, especially with live action. Like live action dubbing is really hard. So
Mhm.
because it's a real person, it's not an animated character. So you have to really match a human.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I know I would think that your first more dramatic character would be in Ease Otherwise, Yuki.
yeah, Yuki was a really fun one because I kind of had the chance to tap into a little bit more of like an edgier kind of character, which was really cool because I think Steven and the other people at ADV Films, because I'm kind of a silly dude, and I think that they sort of categorize me in this sort of this little subset of casting that they were doing. But then I told Steven, I was like, I'd love to play somebody that has a little bit of edge because I do have a dark side, Steven. And he was like, okay, well, let's see. I want to find out if you actually have this dark side. ADV they were rocking back in the day. That was obviously before they became Seraphim. And I think that was like in 2001 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, uh, is when Sarah, or maybe it was later. It may have been actually like 2004 because I moved out into the LA market in 2004.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Well, I know you would have done the last anime you would have done in Texas was Cromartie.
Cromartie High School, man. That was, I think, even still to this day, hands down the most fun that I've ever had in an anime. I mean, and I honestly I still think it holds up, like even
Yeah.
20 years later. Like to me, because they just gave Stephen Foster free reign to rewrite it however he wanted to, and I think that having that freedom really allowed him to sort of tap into a different type of interpretation of the script. So it was sort of a little bit more tongue in cheek and really goofy, really quirky. And Kamayama, my character, I just had so much fun with. Like Steven just kind of let me go. So as long as I was matching Kamayama's flaps, then he would just let me sort of improvise with it or do whatever. And it was honestly one of the most freeing creatively projects that I've ever been involved in. Actually, look, you can see there's right
Yeah.
there. That's there it is. There it is. So yeah, I still have that. I have some memorabilia here, but it's yeah, that was a blast. Cromartie was really rad, and it was my first time like having a sort of like leading character too, which was awesome. That was a while ago. And then I was still doing on-camera stuff in Houston too. So I was like doing commercials and voiceover and whatever I could get my hands on, really. And did a couple of like indie films out of Austin, and then I ended up booking a small role in the Ray movie with Jamie Foxx, the Ray Charles movie, and I had a small role in that. And yeah, that was the decision maker, because I sort of like had been taking all these different types of classes and doing some theater stuff, and I felt like after shooting that scene with Jamie Foxx, I mean, 2 days on the set, and it was Taylor Hackford directed, and he did like The Devil's Advocate and Officer and a Gentleman, and 2 days on that set was like 2 years of classes. Like, it's just such a, you really see what it's all about, and these bigger budgets, and really having a more comprehensive understanding about what it's all about. And so once I booked that, I was like, all right, I'm making the move. So I pretty much packed my bags and came out to LA, and I barely knew anybody, and just started grinding away, man, taking lots of classes, and trying to do the networking thing. And yeah, it was a wild ride.
Mhm.
It's
Well,
been a wild ride.
that does tie into what I was going to ask next. Is what was the job that got you into SAG?
Oh God. I think my first union job was actually on a commercial that was like a Time Warner cable commercial or something like that. And it was like the first union thing, but it wasn't just I don't think it was just a regional market. I think, but it had to have been a regional market. But it was shot in Austin. That was the first time that I got like Taft-Hartley'd.
Yeah.
Or whatever, which I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's if you're not union, then the casting has to Taft-Hartley you so that you become eligible. And I think it's like 3 times that you get Taft-Hartley, then you become a what they call a must join.
Yeah.
So if you book another union job and you're a must join, you have to pay the initiation fees in order to become a part of the union, become a union member, and then you can do the job. So but yeah, I mean, I always tell people, like, if you're gonna, if union work is definitely, it's just sort of like a different sort of caliber of work, and you have protections. You're under certain contracts. The rates are a lot better for union work, and obviously you can work towards getting your health insurance and stuff like that. But I mean, I tell everybody, like, stay SAG eligible as long as you possibly can, until they're like, no, you actually have to pay to join the union this time if you want to do this project. So, that way you can work union projects and non-union projects as long as you want. But because once you join the union, and it's very much frowned upon to do non-union work. It was a Time Warner cable commercial, was I think my first union gig. And then obviously the Ray Charles movie. And yeah, I think those, and there was maybe something earlier on that I did, another commercial probably, that made me eligible to join the union. But like when I moved out here to LA, like within the first few months, I booked a role on camera, because I was sort of splitting my time between voiceover and on camera pursuits. And I was still auditioning a lot for on camera stuff, and I booked Creepshow 3, which was really campy horror flick. And the story was ridiculous, but they actually shot it on the Universal Studios backlot, but it was a non-union production. And so that was like literally within the first few months of moving to Los Angeles, I was shooting a movie on the Universal Studios backlot, and I was like, this is the way life is always going to be, because it's like on Wisteria Lane, where they were shooting what was that show about the Desperate Housewives? It was like on the same street and where they were shooting all that. So yeah, it was a trip.
Well, it does look like that you didn't get back into the anime scene in LA until about like 2012 or so with Nura.
Yeah. Well, after having booked the Ray Charles thing, when I first moved out to the LA market, my primary focus was taking classes for on camera for a larger market like this. And I still had like my voiceover demos and, that I was kind of shopping around, but my attention had sort of shifted into on-camera work. And I was still occasionally doing like a voiceover thing or whatever. And I would come back to Houston or whatever and go see them at ADV, but nothing really landed at that time. And I was primarily pursuing on-camera stuff and was taking classes at like Larry Moss Studio and Margie Haber Studios, and just classes about like auditioning technique, because it's such a, the audition is a very different thing than when you're actually in the job. Like when you have to learn how to audition well. And that's a skill in and of itself. So you take those classes and they have like workshops, like casting director workshops, where you get yourself in front of somebody and trying to get an agent and like going through that whole process. So yeah, it's I think Nura was the first anime back, but I think we recorded that and like it was before 12. Did it come out in 2012?
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. But it must have been like 2000. I think it was 11, because I remember I met Mami Okada over at Bang Zoom.
Yeah.
Somebody referred me to her, and I let her know that I'd done some anime dubbing already, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I know." She's just like the sweetest. She's so sweet. She's like just a really, really kind person. And she was like, "Oh yeah, I know your work and whatever, and I'd love to bring you in." And she put me into Nura, and that was Tony Oliver directed that, and that was great because it was like, "Oh yeah, I forget how much I love this. I miss this." So yeah, that was great. It was great. And it was obviously great to get in with Bang Zoom, because they were, had a great reputation for, putting out some great anime. So yeah.
Then it was Goyle and Blood Lad a couple of years after that.
Yeah. The detective, who was a real badass, if I remember correctly. And Blood Lad, and I knew that Blood Lad, that title was kind of a big deal. So I think that was honestly one of the first times that I was actually nervous. Like, I'm not one of those performers who like freaks out. When I do theater stuff, I get the butterflies, or on camera stuff, I get the butterflies. But for some reason, I found myself really relaxed behind a microphone. And maybe because you don't have as many eyes on you. But it was, but I knew that Blood Lad was a bigger title or whatever, and that was fun. That was really fun, playing Goyle. Forgot about that. Man, you've done your homework, Chris. Christopher, you've done your homework. Good for you.
What about Magi?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Moo, right? Moo. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that was fun too, because it was kind of, that title, that show was kind of, they were playing with a different kind. It wasn't like a straight anime. There was a real sort of fantastical element to that I really loved. And I got to play somebody that had a little bit more gravitas to his voice too, which I really enjoyed. Because you do have to show as much range as possible with casting directors. You want to be able to let them know that you can play a variety of different types of characters. But because I naturally have just kind of like a sort of a higher end and kind of like the best buddy kind of quality or whatever, you find yourself playing a lot of those roles. And then eventually I started to find myself with Bang Zoom playing these really sort of like understated characters, these people who are really sort of don't have a lot of like vocal dynamics and not a lot of like emotional roller coaster stuff happening. They're really evenly keeled, which is interesting that Bang Zoom and Mami started to use me for more of that stuff, because I feel like I'm the exact opposite of that, so, but yeah. So yeah, Alexius, I think. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, based off your answer, I mean, yeah, it is really interesting because your range of anime characters you have characters that look like people like Patrick Seitz would play, and then you have characters that look like Yuri Lowenthal would play. It's really interesting.
Yeah. And it's weird because, I found myself realizing that like man, there's some super talented people in this realm, this world of anime dubbing. Just so good, like incredibly talented. And um instead of trying to pursue it too much, what I found that or trying to go after like leading role stuff, I just sort of like allowed the process to happen. So whenever something would come up and I would audition for something, I wasn't the kind of person that was like, "Hey, I'd really like to chance to read for more leading role stuff or any of that." It was just sort of like, hey, whatever comes into my life is supposed to come into my life, And I really felt that, and just putting that energy out, I think, in many ways, allowed me to sort of keep at it, like keep working, as opposed to trying to control the situation. I think that's a pitfall for many actors, is trying to navigate their career in a specific way, and they try so hard that it becomes almost like overzealous, as opposed to just like, just take the ride, enjoy the ride, and good things start to happen, so yeah.
Well, I know you did have a pretty badass lead early on too in a Disgaea 5.
Yeah, that was awesome. Disgaea 5 was super fun. Yeah, man. And it was really great because that was Kevin directed that, I think. And we it was funny because he put up this picture of Bruce Willis with a machine gun, and Bruce Willis is like in this still photo, and he put it on my music stand where the script was, so that I would just have to go down and reference it while we were recording Disgaea 5. But he wrote in underneath the picture, "Calm on the inside." So it was like this real interesting way of like, I would just go down and reference that photo, and it was like, okay, I have to maintain that sort of like Bruce Willis. He's such a Killia is such a badass character, but he sort of projects this idea that like cool, calm, and collected, kind of like Bruce Willis.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was a fun one. And knowing that it was like Disgaea 5 too, like it was such a, people love those. So
But what do you think is the case with anime that you had to get the darkest emotional headspace for?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, I think that like tonally, there's some shows that because it runs the gamut with anime. There's so much different types of content out there. I don't know. That's a tough one. As far as like really tapping into something that's like a darker. I don't know. You have my resume in front of you, don't you? You probably know better than I do.
Well, I was gonna guess it's also probably my single favorite role of yours is a Kumagami in Charlotte.
Yeah, and that's a good example. It's also a good example of what I was talking about with like characters who are sort of evenly keeled.
Mhm.
There's a very sort of like understated way of to some of these characters, and I had the chance to play several of those, I feel like. But yeah, that was definitely tapping into something that was really kind of understated and sort of enigmatic in a way. Like it was like you didn't really know what was going on with that character. So that was fun. It's fun, and that's part of the thing, man. Is I got into I wanted to become an actor because I'm fascinated by the human experience, and there was never any subject matter that I found more interesting than another. I've always been interested in learning more about science and law, and just sort of the breadth of the human experience, and having the chance to play a character like that versus a character like Kamiyama in Cromartie High School. Like those two couldn't be more different, but that's part of the fun of it all.
Well,
Yeah.
there's another case. It's not dark at all, but I mean another really grounded, more realistic character in Violet Evergarden.
Yeah, Benedict. Oh God, that show is so beautiful, man. It's a gorgeous show. And we knew it, and that when we were doing it, because when you see it and you start to, really get into what these characters are going through and experiencing, but then you see like just from a design standpoint, and it had that sort of really rad kind of steampunk aesthetic to it, which I loved. I thought it was so cool, but it was a really like very sweet show too. Like, but you know, Benedict's character, Benedict Blue, was definitely one of the more fun characters to play because I feel like that's probably about as close to myself
Oh,
as I've had the chance to play. I really, yeah, as far as anime stuff is concerned. And yeah, and you never know what's going to take off. That was the other thing. Like while we were doing it, I think that we knew there was like, oh, this Violet Evergarden is gorgeous. Like this is good. You know, I think it's really going to resonate with fans. So yeah, that was cool. That was a really cool show, and the cast was so good in that. Again, I've been really lucky to like be surrounded by people who are just really wonderfully talented. You know, you don't get the chance to be in the studio with them. That's more like for animation stuff where you do ensemble records and stuff like that. For anime, it's usually just you behind the microphone, unless you're in a Walla session, which is filling in some of the background stuff. Excuse me. So, but you know, you'll be leaving a session or arriving to a session for a show, and you get to see, you know, fellow voice actors, and it's like, yeah, oh dude, you're so good in this show, I heard you in this scene. And it's, you know, there's a real camaraderie that exists in their community, and it's cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
do you have much attachment with Fuji Tsukasa in your name?
No, not really. Like it was just no, and it's funny because that's another one that I was just like, when we saw it, you know, and we found out who was in the cast. I remember texting people and like, this is an incredible piece of art,
Mhm.
you know, and your name is I think, as far as anime again, is I think one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever been involved in, you know. And there's a reason that it was like winning awards and it got all these accolades, you know, and you can see it, you know. It's I think it resonated with a much sort of like larger demographic, not just anime fans.
Mhm.
You know, so people who aren't anime fans can watch a film like Your Name and just be like, oh wow, this is really cool.
Mhm.
You know, so yeah, but no, not I don't think that character, but I think that it was, but again, like as an actor, it's just an extension of yourself. You play a variety of different characters, and all you're doing is really sort of like grabbing onto something. You're tapping into like a little bit more of anger, rage, frustration, or somebody who's, you know, a little bit more tucked in, like Kumagami, you know. So but yeah, man, we knew with Your Name that we had something special for sure. And that, you know, got to give big ups to NYAV Post, Stephanie Shea and Michael over there. That, I mean, um, they work in a way that is really interesting because they just help you find the authenticity to it. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that for some people like you, or for some studios or some particular shows or some directors, sometimes they want to honor more what the original show is before it's actually dubbed. And other people want to sort of really tap into like a, you know, the interpretation of it, or the really getting into sort of a more grounded, authentic version of yourself in that character for that show.
Mhm.
And you know, I have to give praise to Stephanie Shea and Michael at NYAV Post for that. They do that with, you know, with Gundam and with all of it. It just feels really real.
Mhm. Well, it is a game, but another example of that where the translation, writing, and directing is great is a Fire Emblem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, and again, like you know, when you have the chance to do a show versus a game, um you know, you have like the cut dialogue, but then you have like the one-off lines where so the structure of it and the way in which you record it is so different.
Yeah.
But yeah, for Fire Emblem, I mean, you know, they let me know like we have something big on our hands here. And let's see, that was Randolph, right? That's Randolph.
Atlas. Well, yeah, you had Randolph and Three Houses, and then Atlas and Fire Emblem Echoes.
Right, Atlas, right. Yeah. And those two characters are pretty different too. There was kind of a regality to both of them.
Right.
you know, but I think Randolph was really fun because it's a chance to play somebody that's sort of like in this, you know, at the top of this sort of hierarchy, you know, and knowing that like the familial connection and this, you know, what's actually happening in these different factions. So it's fun. It's fun to play. Yeah.
I'm sure it had to be a pretty cool to. There's so many crazy, flashy fighting scenes in Fate Apocrypha.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, and doing a Fate IP also was like, oh, this is gonna be super cool, man. Yeah, and you know, with Fate, because there was already such an established fan base, you know, people just really gravitated towards it. You feel a real responsibility to make sure that you're, you know, really bringing as much of yourself to it as you can, you know, and that's, you know, that's a testament to a really good director too, is because they guide you through the process. And it's impossible when you're behind the microphone to be objective. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's the challenge for a lot of people, because you see what's up on the screen and you bring your interpretation to it, but it's impossible to hear yourself. It's sort of like when you hear yourself in an outgoing voicemail message and you're like, that's what I sound, is that what I sound like? You know? So when you're hearing yourself in a performance of something, sometimes you're like, or they'll do a playback for you, but you really have to put your faith in the director to know that it's like, when they say, no, that second one was perfect, we have what we need. You just have to sort of trust in the fact that it's like, well, they know this show and they know these characters better than anybody, you know, and that's the job of the director, is to make sure that they're there as the conductor of this piece, you know. And so you just and you're just there to play your French horn, you know, as an actor, as a voice actor. So it's like, you know, you contribute your horn to the symphony that is the piece, and he's the director, the conductor. So it's kind of cool that when you put your faith in the director to be like, was that what you were thinking? And it's like, oh, that's great, you know. So yeah, it's fun to play. But yeah, the Fate was awesome because that character was such a badass too, like such a like a wonderfully understated yet powerful character. I'm lucky now that I have the ability to say, I don't really feel this character as much. Is it okay if I audition for this other one? You know, or and the chance to be able to choose, like, if there's something else in the show that, or to ask, like, if there's something else. I mean, it's a gift. It's 100% a gift, but that is very much based upon the relationships that you have with the people who are in those positions. But, you know, I had the conversation with Mommy at Bang Zoom about, you know, it seems like I'm in this place where I'm playing a lot of sort of evenly keeled characters, and I'd love the chance to play something that has a little bit more of a emotional range to it, you know. She was like, oh, okay. And she started sending me stuff, you know, that was that had a little bit more, and sort of scaled back on some of the stuff that was those evenly keeled characters, very understated characters. So, but no, I don't have a preference. I mean, I naturally am kind of a goofy dude, so I love doing comedy stuff. Again, like Cromartie to me was just like it was the best, hands down the best.
What about a House Husband?
Yeah. Oh man, that show is insane, right? Yeah. Have you've seen the whole show?
Yeah, and it wasn't very long ago that I interviewed Jonah too. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't think that was my first show over at VSI, but I don't think so, but it was that show is hilarious. But again, you're going, you know, some of the best comedy beats, comedy moments come from a place where you're really sort of just connected to what's going on. Like the ridiculousness of the situation is actually, it's much more funny when it's somebody who really believes that this is, you know, their perspective. And, you know, that's where you get conflict, and conflict creates comedy a lot of the time. So Uh, yeah, Way the House Husband. Man, you've really done your homework, man. Wow. What was his name on Way of the House Husband?
Torajiro.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually looking it up now because I'm like, what? I know this. But you know, when you stylistically, that's all. That's the other thing is like when you're given the chance to be a part of a show, you have to match tonally what it is that they're looking for. And so yeah, that show is just out there. It's really fun.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, speaking of auditions, when you got Oz and Genshin Impact, were you auditioning for a major character first, like a playable character?
Um, I'm trying to remember how they did the auditions for Genshin. I think that they sent like a packet, and you just audition for. I think most of the time they'll be like pick up to 3 characters, but they'll send like all the male characters. And when I got Oz, it was funny because I do remember now. It was like 3 different characters that I auditioned for, and what I tried to do was pick 3 very different ones, and Oz just landed on the right day for me at the right time because I was in a headspace that day where I felt almost like this really ethereal thing. And oftentimes what I try to do is bring whatever it is that I'm feeling that day to whatever audition I'm in, and hopefully the puzzle pieces connect, they match up. And, for Oz, I was feeling in a very sort of ethereal place that day already. And I think that was, I assume that's why they cast me, is because it just sort of connected to what the character required. But yeah, no, and God, Genshin has become such a big hit. It's crazy. Yeah.
Well, then you've been playing Agnes and Trails of Cold Steel for a while.
Yeah, that's been God, that's off and on. I'm not sure where they're at with that right now with Trails. But I mean, I feel like that's just never going to end. It's just, but yeah, Agnes is fun. Yeah, I'm really lucky, man. I feel really lucky that I've had the chance to, to work, to play in voiceover at all. And, I feel like anime is, again, like one of this sort of one arena, the chance to play in a variety of different types of stuff now too it's really a blast. Animation is so different from anime dubbing,
Right.
And equally like, commercial voiceover is so different than anything else, or like group ADR. I've been doing a lot of group ADR stuff, which is, like the zombies for the Walking Dead shows. I've been doing that for 6-7 years now. And that's really fun. It's also, and it's very different. But the great thing that with anime was that you learn about the technical component of dubbing, because you get your preview of whatever the scene is, and you have to really pay attention to what's going on emotionally and what's going on from a technical component of what the character is going through. Because sometimes you want to make sure that you're grabbing even the slightest of like a sigh or a scoff, or like, because that actually that kind of stuff is what breathes life into these characters, and sometimes if it's not there, and you can still add that into it, and it sort of accentuates a moment that you didn't even know was there. And it, sometimes the unspoken stuff that is the little subtle nuance thing, that's where the life of the character really is. So
Well, speaking of ADR for major film and TV, do you often work with Bridget Hoffman? Do you know who that is?
Yeah, I do. That's funny. Yeah. Oh, you interviewed Bridget, didn't you?
Yeah, I was the first person to ever interview her last summer.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I just saw her last week. Yeah, she's great. She's so talented. She's really, really good. Yeah, I've had the chance to work with her on a few shows. We did like the Nancy Drew show that's on CW. Yeah, we've done all the seasons of that so far, and yeah, a bunch of other stuff. She's fantastic.
It's really interesting too, because I know I don't think a lot of people know that she was the poster girl for the original Evil Dead.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah,
She's the poster girl for that?
yeah.
What? Oh man, I can't wait to tease her about that one. That's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Wow, I had no idea. No, no.
And do you with with the ADR, are you specifically, are you often voice matching major celebrities?
That's a good question. I've done. Um, I don't like to talk about it too much because then it's, because when you're voice matching a celebrity or something like that, I feel like for them, it kind of undermines, or it depends on the actor. Like some of them are, it undermines their overall performance. Um, if you're doing lines for them. But like I was Ryan Reynolds' voice match for Deadpool 1 and 2. So, and there wasn't any, I don't think that they used any of the lines that I had to revoice. Either the audio quality was bad. Ryan Reynolds obviously came back in to do any of the specific dialogue, but like all the fight sequences and all that kind of stuff, all the efforts that you hear in Deadpool 1 and 2, that is actually me doing all of the
Mhm.
all the fight sequence stuff. And there's a couple laughs or whatever. And then for Thor Ragnarok, I had a few lines as Mark Ruffalo that needed to be revoiced, and he was already on his next project. So, and Mark kind of has this like, kind of higher, kind of raspier quality to him. So I got to do, yeah, that. But that, voice matching for celebrities that is a skill set in and of itself that is really, really hard.
Yeah.
Some people just have it, they get it, they can hear it and match it perfectly. Uh, and yeah, that is a tough one. That's, there are certain people that are just really good mimics. Ross Marquand is a guy that comes to mind. He's actually in the Walking Dead show. He plays Aaron in The Walking Dead, and he's incredible at that. And like people like Lex Lang, who's just really, just knocks it out of the park every single time. You really, I have a lot of respect for that, because that's something where it's like there's so much nuance in it.
Mhm.
So, and vocal manipulation from a technical standpoint, the placement of it and making sure that you really, if you can hear something and repeat it and make it, and the key to voice matching is that the audience doesn't know that it's not the actor doing that. You want to sound as close as you possibly can to it. Like people hopefully don't notice that it's not Ryan Reynolds doing all the fight stuff in Deadpool 1 and 2. Hopefully they don't notice it, but it's great work. And I grew up such a big movie and TV fan, when I was a kid, and the chance to like work in Marvel movie, the big Marvel movies, and some of these bigger IPs. It's a trip. Like when I go onto the Disney lot and I walk on a dock stage where they recorded, uh, Toy Story and all of these classics like Little Mermaid, and you walk on a sound stage like that at Disney, and I've been doing it a while now, but I still pinch myself every single time that I walk onto that lot, and especially onto that stage. There's so much rich history there that you're like, wow, I can't believe that I'm here right now. This is crazy. So yeah, I still get goosebumps.
Have you gotten to meet any major on-camera celebrities since you've been doing that?
Oh, you mean like for voice matching stuff? I mean, you bump into people when you're at the studio from time to time, like in passing at the ADR stages. So yeah, you run into people on the lot, on the different lots all the time, whether it's Paramount or Disney or Fox or whatever, Warner Brothers. So yeah, you bump into people. I try not to bother people too much. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So But yeah, that's just kind of comes with the territory sometimes. I will say one time Ross came in for ADR for Walking Dead, and I bumped into him, and Ross and I were in an on-camera commercial together like 14 years ago.
No.
And we sort of kept in touch over the years, and he's killing it as Aaron on the show. And it's kind of weird that I'm like now I've been doing all the zombies and stuff like that for it. And but he's a great dude. I mean, there's so many wonderfully talented people in this industry.
Mm-hmm. So then most recently in terms of anime, I guess one of the last things that you did was Super Crooks.
That show blew my mind. And knowing that I could just like have free reign to just kind of just go there with Sammy Diesel, because he's unhinged.
Yeah.
And they let me play with the laugh a little bit, with Sammy, which was really fun, because I think it started as sort of more conservative. And I just asked Kevin, the director, I was like, is it cool if let me give you a second take of this and let me know what you think of it? And it was literally like like just nuts. And that's it's great. But that show, that hallway scene, oh God, I can't remember where they're trying to complete that mission. And obviously, Sammy Diesel and his brother can regenerate, but they try to run down the hallway scene, and it's the theme music from, I think it's 2001 Space Odyssey, whatever, and they're just getting just chopped up. I mean, it was a gnarly scene, and it was like when I saw it I was like, okay, let's just go for this. And I remember we actually did that entire thing in one take. Wow. Which was pretty cool to be able to do that, because they're chucking it down the hallway, and that's overall in the show it's a short sequence, but nailing all of the beats in that was really fun. And I was like, let me just chase it to picture. I'll just go for it in one take. And we were able to nail it in one take. It was the trip. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was a really fun show. Yeah. Super Crooks is cool. That's a great one.
We're going back to talking about more intense emotional stuff. Do you remember what happened to Kumagami? Because I can fill you back in.
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, which is it's just tragic, right?
Yeah. Well, because I was listening to that back again today before I interviewed you, and I just thought that you did a phenomenal job with that.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, that was a really hard scene to do. Because you also, especially a character that's so instrumental to the storyline, what happens, with all those characters, and getting to the point where towards the end of a run of a show where you care about the character, and you don't always know what is going to happen. I don't always watch the full show. Sometimes I don't have access to an entire show in its original Japanese version. And I didn't know what happened to him at the end. And when they brought me in, they were like, this is going to be a tough session, just to let you know. And I'm like, don't tell me. And they let me know. They previewed the scenes with Kumagami. And that was emotional. That was a tough one. Because it's like sacrificing himself. So that was, yeah. But again, like that's, the chance to sort of run the gamut of what these characters go through. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was a tough one though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything else that's upcoming that you're part of that you can safely talk about?
As far as anime is concerned?
Well, both, or just in general.
Well, probably not without breaking a non-disclosure agreement. But yeah, there's several things that I've had the privilege of working on lately. I do recommend if anybody out there is not watching Bob's Burgers, I've had the chance to do some stuff on Bob's Burgers, like just additional voices, and that is such a fantastic show. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, that one is really, really good. There's a show called The Offer that is on right now. I think it's about the making of The Godfather.
Okay.
And if you listen to the last episode, I play the young Clint Eastwood in that. You don't actually see him, but he's up on stage, and I got to do kind of like a young Clint Eastwood in that. So that's coming up. That's in the last episode of The Offer. But as far as like anime stuff that I have that's upcoming, like I wish that I could talk about it, but it's all NDA.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd get like a dart in the neck out of nowhere. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's this one,
Well,
So-
my final question is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh my God, what my legacy to be? I don't know. I think my hope is that to be involved in any kind of show that has an impact, a positive impact on somebody else's life, even if it's just one person's life, to portray characters, and to play in the world of entertainment in general, and to be able to do this for a living I feel really, really lucky. But I think that having the chance to play a character that actually, that really has an impact on people, that's the hope. That is the dream for sure. Somebody that's either, feeling down in the dumps or going through something very personal to them. I know some of the things, some of the movies or shows or cartoons or whatever that I have experienced in my life that have had a really positive impact on me at a time that I was feeling down or depressed or going through a challenging time, like the loss of a family member, or whatever the case may be. And sometimes all it takes is just like one episode of one show to pull you out of a funk. And I think that shows the power of this entertainment world that we get to work in and play in. It's when it's done well, it can really have a significant impact on people. So that's the hope.
Okay.
Of legacy, I guess.
Well, I was just talking to Brandon Hernsberger. He said that when he was in LA, that you helped him totally get into the voiceover scene there.
Oh yeah, dude, Brandon's awesome. Yeah. We go way back, fellow Houstonian. I feel lucky, and this community is it's a rare thing. Part of the reason I decided to sort of move away from the on-camera pursuits of things is because there's a different sense of competition, and there's a lot that goes into the on-camera pursuits of things that when you do it long enough, you recognize that it's like, oh, this is so laborious. And it can be a very daunting task also, because it's very much about like, what have you recently worked on and who is your representation, and like all of these things that are political that have nothing to do with whether or not you're right for the role. In the world of voiceover, the voiceover community, we help each other, we support each other. You hear about somebody booking something that you auditioned for, and it's like, oh dude, you are going to make a really great so-and-so character, like good for you. Or if you get an audition for something, or you find out you don't get something or whatever, and you recommend somebody that would be really good at, or somebody that has a skill set that is really, great for a specific character. I've turned stuff down and recommended other fellow voice actors because it's like, I think that they would be perfect for this, and that kind of support really sort of like, it penetrates the entire community. Like you really feel that support. So it's cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that we got to do this.
Yeah, man. Thank you. It's good to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. And good luck with that shampoo commercial. If you book it, you're a shoe-in for that, bro. Total shoe-in for that.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, you too. I'll be sure to send this to you once I have it up as well.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Yes. Bye.